we tend to criticize the governments, tend to criticize how justice is delivered without ever analyzing or estimating, are these organizations, police, prisons, legal aid, judiciary, have they got enough budgets, infrastructure, manpower? Do they have enough diversity? And do they have the capacity to actually deliver to 1.4 billion people?
Mm-hmm.
So that seemed to be something that was missing in all of the work that active citizens do to support a democratic government.
India Justice Report is another organization that caught my imagination. I have personally experienced what lack of access to justice looks like. The lack of access to timely, fair, and affordable justice may be the single biggest foundational challenge that India faces. I don't know how it is possible to build a functioning democratic society without a foundation of the rule of law. In my own experience, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're powerful or humble, any encounter with law enforcement and the judicial system will leave you both frustrated, angry, and ravaged. So this is an extraordinarily complex problem, and even powerful members of the judiciary, from law enforcement, ministers, etc., sometimes express helplessness in terms of how to fix it. So when I met Maja Daruwala and Valay Singh, was enormously inspired. Who these two people have been putting out the India Justice Report, again on a shoestring budget of less than 2 crores. This is a collaborative effort, which I like again, along with that takes along 5 other organizations, enormously credible. And their reports, their findings, their recommendations are now being taken seriously by decision makers everywhere. Maya is the daughter of Sam Manekshaw, India's most celebrated military leader. And at age 77, she has the intensity and energy of a young entrepreneur, and I found that contagious.
Maya, hello. Thank you for joining me on Spare Change to Real Change. This is a series of conversations we're having, Maya, just to kind of get the message across to as many people who will listen that it's never too early to start giving. And we want to shine the spotlight on many incredible people like you that are doing amazing work and that people can support. So thank you for bringing your voice to this platform. I want to start, Maya, with the birth of India Justice Report. I know from everything I've read, the intent is to hold the state judiciary system accountable to what they themselves have declared as their benchmarks. But if you can start with just telling us a little more.
Thank you for having me. And I should say right at the beginning that I'm so glad that you're doing this from spare change to real change, because this area of justice, of rights, of governance is so little supported by the public. Perhaps for a reason that everybody takes their freedoms for granted, and because we've had it for so long, but at the same time not realizing that there are lots and lots of people who need justice, are not getting it, and very few people who are actually active in promoting the notion of justice.
Absolutely.
So I'm really glad to be here and to tell you about the India Justice Report and the work that I'm presently doing. First of all, I should say that I'm not the only one who's doing it. We are a collective of 6 organizations. There's Common Cause, Vidhi, Daksh, Tis Prayas, Center for Social Justice, and CHRI. All of these came together, and now we have this collective that guides and sets the agenda. It began under the aegis of Tata Trusts. They had a program on civil society strengthening, and they were supporting all of these organizations, or almost all of these organizations. They brought us together because we all had different skills or different areas of looking at, examining, researching in the areas that make up the justice system. Each of us were working in our own silos, and we sat around a table and we worked out what were the commonalities, what were the gaps. And we came across this common thread that we were indeed working in silos, but we had a lot of specialization between us. Mm-hmm. And what was missing in the public domain was the idea of capacity. We tend to criticize the governments, tend to criticize how justice is delivered without ever analyzing or estimating, are these organizations, police, prisons, legal aid, judiciary, have they got enough budgets, infrastructure, manpower? Do they have enough diversity? And do they have the capacity to actually deliver to 1.4 billion people? Mm-hmm. So that seemed to be something that was missing in all of the work that active citizens do to support a democratic government.
Maya, what have been the constraints that you'll have had to grapple taking this initiative forward?
First of all, I should tell you how lucky we were.
Yes, that's a good place to start.
As I said, it started under the aegis of Tata Trust, and other donors also came in because Tata Trust has a certain kind of credibility. And we ourselves, once we put out the report, the first report, it was received well, but it was received as a kind of surprise, a new initiative. Because what it did was, it didn't leave it by just saying, well, you've got so many policemen, or well, you've got so many judges, or anything like that. It actually ranked the states. And that was a unique selling point, if you like, and a point of interest. And it caught the imagination, the media, and also the policymakers. The other thing that caught the imagination was the fact that all this data, which was siloed, different subsystems, we knitted all that together. And that in itself was an amazing effort. The third thing was that we did not use a critical lens. We used the statistics that the government puts out itself. We used that so that it was never intended as a critique of what was happening. It was intended as a mirror. And it was intended to say that we are putting all this out as a tool to assist you, as a resource for policymakers, and importantly for the media also, not to report anecdotally, but rather to base what we are saying in the facts. So to get back to your question about what the challenges were, one challenge is inherent in this kind of work, which is finding the data, identifying it, getting a full set of data. The other challenge is the incompleteness and inaccuracy of the data. See, incompleteness one can cope with. But for policy to be made on inaccurate data will take you in a direction that you don't really want.
No, it's such important work, and you've given a clear picture of what you are constrained by, and you beautifully brought up all of the things that helped this, because moving forward is both. Maya, in the short term, have states woken up to this and felt like, okay, if it's a competitive ranking, I want to do better? And has it led to effecting any positive change?
It's very hard to attribute what happens in such a complex uh, machinery as government. But I think the conversation has changed a little bit, and that the Justice Report, the India Justice Report, is being quoted in Parliament, in assemblies, committee documents. When the launch happens, when we produce the new report, we get a lot of real interest from the media. And people pick up different threads. So it has become a conversation piece. We ourselves, when we go to a state, and if we get an appointment and we talk to government, whether it's been at the national level or whether it's been at the state level, we don't get tremendous amounts of defensiveness. What we get is, please explain this to us, or why have you ranked it like this? And if you can give a reasoned, balanced assurance that the methodology is not wrong, they will take it on board and will often call a chief secretary or someone of fair authority, will call their group together or their team together and talk about, why is it like this? Intention to improve, I do see, is there.
And that's such a remarkable point, right? And I just want to kind of highlight some of the things that you laid out. Of course, acknowledging that this is a complex effort and it's not easy to, attribute the actual outcomes directly, but you're already seeing openness to conversations have started. The media have access to factual data, which is a big piece considering they're such an important stakeholder. And the third point you highlighted was the governments themselves, the policymakers you've met have not been resistant. They've actually been open and have asked questions, understanding that this could help them with solutions. And so it's such a significant step. And how can anyone listening into our conversation today, Maja, offer support to your efforts?
Of course, finance is lovely if you can give it. I think replication is such a fantastic way of flattery. If other organizations, other groups, even village groups, even state groups or anyone took up the idea of measuring the capacity availability of justice in their small area, in their taluka, in their district, and did a deep dive and could take it to the people who are there and who are responsible for doing this, then that would be a wonderful thing to do. Taking the conversation forward, having people like us who have done this work and coming forward and saying, well, why don't you bring it to our state? So there's lots we can do if there was a demand created for this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maja. I really think what you're doing is important. And if in some way we can help this take your efforts forward, then I think the Spare Change to Real Change will do its little bit. But just to capture what you said, the way to support is to replicate, if possible, to really be involved in conversations, if governments can adopt some of these ideas and suggestions. And finally, because this is about from Spare Change to Real Change, financial support. So thank you for sharing all of the work you've done.
We are assessing capacity to build capacity. Something that one of my steering committee members said, and I like that as a strap line.
Great. So we leave that as a closing thought. Thank you so much.
Thank you.